Hello and welcome back to Understanding Depression. Thank you for being here with us. And if this is your first time tuning in, we're so glad you found your way here. Today's episode is one that might surprise you. We're going to explore a form of depression that often goes unnoticed, even by those who live with it: atypical depression. Yes, depression has many faces, and sometimes those faces smile. Sometimes depression doesn't look like what we've been taught to expect. It doesn't always mean you're crying in a dark room or unable to get out of bed. In fact, some people with atypical depression might appear to function just fine on the outside, laughing with friends, going to work, and keeping up with life, while quietly struggling in ways that don't fit the textbook picture. And that's exactly why it's so important to talk about it. When symptoms don't match what we think of as classic depression, they're often dismissed by others and even by ourselves. So in this episode, we'll unpack what atypical depression really is, the key signs and symptoms, how it differs from major depressive disorder, and why it's often misunderstood or missed altogether. We'll also look at real-life stories, current research, and the role that empathy and awareness play in recognizing the less visible sides of mental illness. So stay with me, stay mindful, and let's take this journey together. And as always, if this episode resonates with you, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing. You never know who might need this information today. Let's begin by clarifying something that often causes confusion. When we say atypical depression, we don't mean it's rare. In fact, some studies suggest that atypical depression may be more common than the name implies. The term atypical was originally used in contrast to what's called melancholic depression, the more typical form, which often involves a loss of appetite, insomnia, and a persistent inability to feel pleasure. In atypical depression, the symptoms look different. But that doesn't mean they're any less real or any less serious. It simply means they don't fit the traditional mold. So what does atypical depression look like? Here are some of the hallmark features. 1. Mood reactivity. People with atypical depression often experience mood reactivity. That means their mood can temporarily lift in response to positive events. Let's say someone gets good news, a compliment, a visit from a friend, or a message they've been waiting for, and for a while, they genuinely feel better. This is very different from melancholic depression, where nothing seems to bring joy, no matter what happens. But don't let this temporary lightness fool you. Just because someone smiles or laughs occasionally doesn't mean the storm inside them has passed. Increased appetite or weight gain. Unlike classic depression, which can cause loss of appetite, atypical depression may involve eating more, especially craving carbohydrates and sweets. Some people report emotional eating as a way to cope, without always realizing it's connected to their depression. Hypersomnia instead of insomnia. Atypical depression often brings excessive sleep. A person may sleep longer than usual, 10, 12, sometimes even 14 hours a day, and still feel exhausted. This fatigue isn't just about laziness or low motivation. It's a symptom of a deeper imbalance in the brain and body. Leaden paralysis. This is a strange but very real experience. A feeling of heaviness in the limbs, as if your arms and legs are weighed down. It's not just being tired. It's a physical sensation that makes even simple tasks feel overwhelming. Sensitivity to rejection. One of the most painful aspects of atypical depression is interpersonal rejection sensitivity. Even minor criticism or perceived disapproval can feel crushing, leading to avoidance, low self-esteem, and strained relationships. People with this symptom often carry deep fears of abandonment or failure, even when others around them are supportive. Now that we've explored the main symptoms of atypical depression, let's go deeper into the why. Where does it come from? And why is it so often misunderstood? The truth is, mental health conditions rarely have just one cause. Atypical depression, like other forms of depression, is usually the result of a complex mix of biological, psychological, and environmental factors. Some research points to imbalances in brain chemistry, particularly involving serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These are the neurotransmitters that affect our mood, energy, motivation, and ability to feel pleasure. In atypical depression, dopamine and norepinephrine dysregulation may play a bigger role than in melancholic types. There's also a strong link to anxiety disorders, especially social anxiety. In fact, many people with atypical depression also experience symptoms of social rejection sensitivity, which can deeply impact their day-to-day lives. On the environmental side, chronic stress, early life trauma, or unresolved emotional wounds can increase vulnerability. So can genetics. If someone in your family has had depression or another mood disorder, the chances go up. But here's something important to understand. Atypical depression is often misdiagnosed, or not diagnosed at all. Why? Because people with atypical depression often manage to function. They might keep going to school or work, take care of their families, and smile in public. From the outside, they look fine, but inside, they might feel like they're drowning. Let's take a look at a fictional, but realistic example. Meet Sarah. She's 29, works in marketing, and lives with her partner. To her co-workers, she's energetic and outgoing. She brings homemade cookies to the office and always remembers birthdays. But what they don't see is that Sarah sleeps 11 hours a night and still wakes up tired. She craves sweets constantly, feels devastated by minor criticism, and cries in private when she feels excluded. When good things happen, like getting praise from her boss, her mood lifts, but only for a few hours. She tells herself, "I'm just too sensitive," or "other people have it worse." This inner invalidation is common, and it delays people from seeking help. So, how do we recognize atypical depression in ourselves, or in the people we care about? It starts with awareness. Because atypical depression doesn't always stop you from functioning, it's easy to overlook. In fact, some people go years, even decades, without realizing that what they've been dealing with isn't just a personality trait or rough patch, but a treatable condition. Here are some reflection questions that might help. Do you find your mood briefly improves when something good happens, but the heaviness quickly returns? Do you sleep a lot more than usual and still feel fatigued? Do you feel a physical sense of heaviness in your limbs, like it's hard to move or get started? Do you crave comfort foods often, especially carbs and sweets, as a way to soothe your mood? Are you unusually sensitive to rejection, to the point where small slights feel unbearable or devastating? And maybe most importantly, do you find yourself functioning, but constantly drained, low, or disconnected underneath it all? If you answered yes to several of these, it's worth exploring further with a mental health professional. Now let's flip it around, recognizing atypical depression in others. This can be even trickier, because again, people may seem okay. So here's what to look for. Friends who seem fine but cancel plans often or sleep too much. Co-workers who joke around during the day but seem emotionally flat or disappear after work. Loved ones who take rejection especially hard, even when it's minor or unintentional. People who show up for others, but seem to struggle with caring for themselves. Sometimes it's not about what people say, it's about what they don't say. It's the teared eyes behind the smile. The laughter that doesn't quite reach the heart. The texts left unread, not because of rudeness, but because of exhaustion. And this is why compassion matters. Atypical depression hides in the ordinary. It blends in. But if we know how to look, with empathy and curiosity, we can help bring it into the light. Now let's talk about something that offers hope. Healing is possible. Atypical depression is real, and it can be debilitating, but it is also treatable. The key is getting the right kind of help, tailored to how your symptoms actually show up. First, therapy. Many people with atypical depression benefit from forms of psychotherapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which helps identify and change unhelpful patterns of thinking. Another approach that may be helpful is interpersonal therapy, IPT, which focuses on relationship dynamics and emotional expression, particularly useful for those with strong sensitivity to rejection. If you find yourself stuck in self-criticism or overwhelmed by emotions you can't quite explain, a skilled therapist can help you gently unpack what's underneath the surface. Next, medication. Some people with atypical depression respond better to MAOIs, monoamine oxidase inhibitors, which were among the first antidepressants developed. While newer medications like SSRIs or SNRIs are more commonly prescribed due to fewer side effects, MAOIs have shown particular effectiveness for atypical features in some cases. However, medication isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. It can take time to find the right combination and dosage, and it's absolutely okay to advocate for yourself in that process. The goal isn't just to reduce symptoms, but to support your whole well-being. If you've made it this far, thank you. That says something important about you. You care, you're curious, and you want to understand. And that in itself is part of healing. Let's end with something we don't hear enough. You don't have to look depressed for your pain to be real. You don't need to be falling apart in public for your struggle to matter. Atypical depression may wear a friendly face. It may show up at work, run errands, make jokes, but behind it all, it can still feel like a heavy, silent ache. If you relate to this, please know you are not weak. You are not too sensitive. And you are not alone. Many people carry this invisible burden. Some don't even have the words for it yet. That's why awareness is so powerful. It gives language to the fog. It allows us to say, this isn't just who I am. This is something I'm experiencing, and I can get help. Now, if someone you care about might be struggling, here's how you can show up for them. Listen without fixing. Sometimes what people need most is a safe space to be heard. Validate what they feel, even if it doesn't look serious on the outside. Encourage small steps. Whether it's making a doctor's appointment, going for a walk, or just resting without guilt. Stay consistent. Check in. Send a message. Let them know they matter, even when they go quiet. And don't forget, your presence is powerful. You don't need all the right words. Just showing up with empathy can be a lifeline. So let's leave today with this reminder. Atypical depression doesn't make you too much. It doesn't make you broken. It means your brain, your body, and your heart are carrying more than they should. And that burden? It deserves to be seen. It deserves support. Healing takes time, but it is possible. You are not alone in this, and you don't have to do it alone. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other, and keep listening, because understanding depression, in all its forms, can change lives.